Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back. I know you're out and about doing nothing because you're indoors, like Tony and I, in separate states, but we are really close when we talk about the proximity of how much we love the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we know you do too. So thanks for joining us for the one and only Monday Steelers podcast, the Steelers Q&A, and the question is, are the Steelers done making free agent moves? I don't know. We didn't think they were going to make any moves at all, Tony, and now they made three big moves last week with other teams' players, a fairly big move with one of their own, and a trade as well. So, Tony, did you see this coming on?
No, I believe our whole show last week was about how they had no money left, and then they pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and here we have Ebron, the guard, and the defensive tackle, just like that. Poof! I don't know how they do it, but kudos to them.
You know what? There's always magic in that little helmet they found. That little leather helmet that with the hypocycloids on just one side. They feel it's ready to go. Once again, I didn't even introduce him. I just went straight into it with Tony Defeo from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis as well, and we're just glad to have you join us as well. One thing that we do here is it's the Q&A, so we're going to answer a lot of your questions, but go ahead and save those questions to about 20 minutes from now, as we're going to wait to answer them as we catch up on the news of the day and catch up on our main question that we have for you. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I just want to have a quick shout out to all our other quarantine buddies out there from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, the podcast platform. You've got Lance Williams, who you'll hear on Wednesday nights with Jeff Hartman, and you'll hear him on Friday nights as well, and Sundays on the Homer and the Hater Show. Jeff Hartman, who I just mentioned, is our editor-in-chief, and he's the editor of the podcast as well. So he's the big fella. So with Jeff, actually not the big fella in stature like Dave and I are, the offensive line of the team, but he's our quarterback. Let's just put it that way. Without the beard, he's got a long way to go ahead and catch Ben Roethlisberger there. And I mentioned Dave Schofield, Big Bro Sco. You'll hear them on a Stat Geek and the Q&A afterwards. And of course, Tony and myself, we're here too. So there's all kinds of different opinions talking about the Steelers, but the one thing that we love is the fact that we love us together. We love being here and being with all of you. Lance Williams just popped in on the live chat saying he's the OC.
He's the man.
Does that mean he's the Orange County? I know he's not the Orange County. He's our offensive coordinator. I don't know what I am. I think I'm the water boy. And I'm providing quality H2O to you all to splash on your faces and hydrate with Steelers. And my son just watched it a couple of weeks ago. He already has a Bobby Boucher jersey because, I love my jerseys. Now he's quoting it. And every time we're watching something on any show and someone starts kissing, you just hear, "You can do it." And I'm like, oh gosh, why'd I make him watch it? Why'd I let him watch that show?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, my favorite line is when he called the one guy. He said, "You sound like a choo-choo train." To me, that's like the best comeback ever. Because what do you do with that, right?
You don't. You start pummeling. Actually, I guess.
Right.
At that point, but let's get started with the question of the day, and it's the Q&A. We'll get right into it. Tony, are the Steelers done making moves in free agency?
I would have to say yes. There's not a whole lot of room left. I mean, we said that last week, but I think they extended beyond what they could do even last week. So, they kicked the can down the road. They brought in some key players that filled various needs, especially a tight end and on the offensive line. So, I think for now they are not for now, but for the rest of the offseason, they are done.
Wow, you know what? I was thinking that you might think that they have one more rabbit in that hat, And I'm kind of thinking they do, Tony. And the reason I'm saying that is there's always one more move to be made. They've surprised us so much so far. I wouldn't be surprised if they have one more. I kind of think they're going to bring in somebody at wide receiver. Just
Okay.
go ahead and do one more like that. There's been rumors, of course. There's the Jameis Winston to Pittsburgh. That train, that choo-choo, that big old choo-choo, that's gaining some steam. I don't think it's going to happen. I was listening to the Fan a little bit ago. They were talking about it. Peter King, of course, is on board with that as well. I just really don't see that happening. But there are some guys out there, and our very own, we mentioned him earlier, our quarterback, Jeff Hartman, published on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And remember, we all come from there. We were there first, and we were on that platform first before a lot of us moved over to the podcast platform, and we're probably on both. A lot of us are on both of them. He published the top 25 remaining free agents. His number one on there was Jameis Winston. Doesn't mean that that's who the Steelers are going to go after, but he's just talking about the options out there. Tate Boy 61 says Jameis doesn't have any other options. So it's a situation, Tony, where he would have to agree to take a 1-year prove-it deal for very little money, like Ryan Tannehill did after he was traded to the Titans from the Dolphins last year for $2 million a year and heavy on incentives.
What I see, why he made almost $22 million last year. So why would he, or 21 million? What I see him doing is just sitting back and waiting for somebody to get hurt in training camp or early in the regular season, and then he swoops in. He signs a pretty decent deal. He becomes a starter for a year, and that's what he did. Why would he sign as a backup and just hope that in 2 years the Steelers are going to make him their starter? When they very well could move on from him even in 2 years. So I see him. Now that all the starting roles have dried up, so to speak, I see him sitting back and just waiting for something like that to happen for a desperate team to throw a lot of money at him early in the regular season.
Well, here you go. The market is kind of collapsing around him now. I mean, because a lot of teams, like you just said, are set and they know where they want to go. The Chargers, Brad Jewett mentions Jameis to New England or the Chargers. And as far as that goes, the Chargers have already said that they're going with Tyrod Taylor, which means they're drafting a quarterback in the first round, and Tyrod is going to be their guy until the new player, whether it be Tua or Herbert or whoever, they're able to go ahead and pick up. Whoever that's going to be is ready to go. So that's probably it. But Michael O'Malley says nobody wants him. So the one thing that you have to look at if you're Jameis Winston right now is you basically take that 1 year to get back on the wagon. The Patriots just signed Bryan Hoyer, who this is going to be his third stint there. So they're probably, and Belichick has something up his sleeve. So he probably feels they can do pretty well with Hoyer, and until they get something figured out. But who knows? They might be picking in the top 10 after making a deal. So you never know what's going to happen there. But teams are in the second wave are probably figuring out exactly where they want to be, especially at that position. For the Steelers, it's a good idea for the Steelers to decide exactly where they want to go in case Ben goes down. Are they really comfortable with going with Mason Rudolph next year? If you're the Steelers, you have a coach that has proven to be a player's coach. And I know a lot of coaches hate that moniker, but Tony, I mean, if you're looking around and you're a player in the league and you're just looking at head coaches, I know in my job, I look at the managers first. I ask them a lot of questions, before I go somewhere else, or if I'm looking at a certain situation, you basically want to know where you're going and who you're going to be working under. And if you feel comfortable with a guy like Mike Tomlin, which a lot of players do, you could rejuvenate your career and in 1 year become the guy like Tannehill did. Now, Tony, you'd probably agree that Tannehill situations aren't really the norm, but could you see that happening with Jameis Winston somewhere?
Well, again, it would have to. I think it would have to come down to the price tag. What's he willing to settle for after what he made last year? What's he willing to settle for this year? A friend of mine and I were talking about it last year. Why not? Would he be willing to sign a deal similar to what Teddy Bridgewater signed last year, which was I think 7.25? But Bridgewater was coming off a major injury, so he didn't really have the leverage that Winston has. And I know he led the league in interceptions last year, but he also led the league in passing. So, I think he's going to be coming at this thing with a slightly higher expectations from teams as far as what he wants in money, and what he wants is, does he want to be, does he really want to be a backup, or does he want to be a starter? And I think at this point, he still wants to be a starter. So that's why I think he's gonna sit back and wait and see what happens right now. As far as him playing for Mike Tomlin, I think it would be a great fit in that regard, because Winston's he's had his problems, and Tomlin usually usually reaches out to guys like that, and he has in the past, and it would be great. But it comes down to the price, and I don't think he's willing to settle for the kind of deal that you mentioned, like that Tannehill. So I just don't think he's willing to do that at this moment.
You know what? But it comes to a point, and Tony, I agree with everything you're saying, but it comes to a point you're like, all right, I need to get a job now.
Right.
And I need to take what the market's for me. But I'm probably going to preface that's going to be laden with incentives. And because, teams are looking and they're throwing it out like crazy in the live chat. Not only did he throw one of the first 30 guys, 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a season, but also led the league in fumbles at the quarterback position. And, the fact sometimes you have to reinvent yourself.
Right.
That's the same thing with Antonio Brown.
Right.
If Gummy Richards wants to come back into the league, well, he's going to have to come back at this point on other teams' terms and reinvent himself. So at this point, teams know what they're looking at. They know when they see Jameis Winston, and they're saying, well, you know what? I can't pay that money for him right now because we're already set. We know where we want to go. We'd love to have him on our team, but not for $30 million, not for $26 million. Right now, you come in, you might be lucky to get $4 or $5 million a year right now for a 1-year deal, prove yourself and get back out there. And we've seen it. Matt Flynn got a huge deal by starting about 4-5 games for Green Bay that 1 year. And he was not a quarterback, but he was a quarterback, but he wasn't a quality starting quarterback in this league. But he was set for life with that one deal. Jameis can get that again. Tony, I'm going to throw a name out there at quarterback that I think they should look at signing. And unfortunately, it's not Case Keenum. On the show last week, you watched me lament and be upset that he's a Cleveland Brown. But I'm going to go with a guy that's not even in the league right now and go the XFL route. And I always thought a good, solid backup for this team could be a Cardell Jones.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's a guy who would be, I think, content to be a backup, number 2, and that's not a bad job to have in the NFL as a number 2 quarterback. And I think he would obviously be able to get him at a much more reasonable price than you would a Jameis Winston, for example. And again, back to Winston, he probably still would want to be he has eyes on being a starter, and that's why I just don't see him sitting here for a couple of years. But somebody like the guy you just mentioned, I think that would be a much more reasonable guy to bring in, and he would be, I think, a more sure thing as a backup as opposed to a Devlin Hodges or maybe even a Mason Rudolph. We don't know about him at this point since he's still relatively unproven.
So there's some reaction to my Cardell 12 gauge Jones idea, but I don't think that's a bad idea because that's the kind of guy you've seen him bring an XFL quarterback in there and do very well with that. There's guys like that. They're hungry to get back to the NFL level. Of course, Landry Jones is out there as well. I think that ship has sailed. There's guys to look at, and you have guys like Paxton Lynch and JT Barrett, and of course Mason Rudolph, and even Duck Hodges that are going to be really fighting it out for that number 3 or number 2 position. But I'd throw in a guy like Cardell Jones and a very cheap deal in the mix. But who knows? But is that the position that they need to look at now? Because we've had stuff. We had a huge laundry list of players that you wanted, and now you're looking at some holes being filled. Now, the nose tackle position wasn't really filled with the trade with acquiring Chris Wormley, but it fills some holes on the defensive line. He's more of a backup in my eyes, even though he has nose tackle experience, to guys like Hayward and Tuitt. But you have the luxury of being able to move Tyson Alu into that into the middle there in that nose tackle role. You still have Isaiah Buggs, who's a not really a project, but he might make that jump in his second year. So that could be a possibility as well. Do you think that that position is taken care of, as far as just wait to the draft now, that you don't really need to touch anything on the defensive line right now?
Yeah, I think they're good for now. I think was it Wormley? I think he provides, he has a lot of upside. He's a third round pick. He's still young. He's 26. So there still might be room for growth there. So I think that's a good player to bring in. And you mentioned Buggs, so and you have a solid top 3 with Hayward and Alu and who am I thinking of? Who am I missing? Hayward, Alu and Tuitt. Yeah. So I think you can wait till the draft. I don't think you have to bring anybody else in free agency. And if you do, it's just going to be probably a league minimum kind of thing. So I don't see them going that route on the defensive line.
So as far as the defense goes, there's a position that I know he's in the live chat now, and Lance Williams mentioned Wormley is a 3-5 technique guy, and I know Lance has been looking at a lot of tape of these new players coming in, which is fantastic. He's one of our really good tape guys watching film, and we've got a few of those. Cliff Harris is still a punk, and Jeff Benedict were really good at that, as well as Lance on the podcast level. So those are guys that really look at that. Anywhere else on the defense, and I know the reason I brought up Lance is I know that he has a position in mind on defense he still wants them to look at. Is there a position that you're looking at on defense that needs to be addressed?
Oh, I think you have to find depth inside linebacker. You cut Mark Barron. Tyler Medikevich left as a free agent, and good for him. He got a pretty good deal for what he does. He's a great special teams guy, but he's nothing as an inside linebacker. At least he hasn't proven that yet. So you lost 2 guys there. You have Ulysses Gilbert III. There's a lot of promise with him. There's a lot of excitement surrounding him, especially coming out of camp last year. So you have him there, but I think you still need to shore that position up with some some veteran depth. So I think they need to. That's definitely something they can a position they can look to address still in free agency, the 3rd or 4th wave that we're into right now.
So that's exactly what I was looking for. I know that's what Lance was saying as well. After I've actually been a little more of a team player and listening to other shows, Tony. And I knew that's exactly where he was going to go as well. I wouldn't mind them addressing outside linebacker in the draft. I think I would probably either that or a wide receiver with their first pick, or somewhere on the offensive line. I'd like to see that. And they talked about on the show yesterday, best player available at that position, at any position. best player available. I think those are the three positions I like to see. Maybe if you're looking in free agency, maybe look for another safety. And I think Mike Smith said on the live chat, third safety. I don't think that's a terribly bad idea either.
Right.
So,
I mean, you lost.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you lost Sean Davis. I think Cam Kelly was cut right after his incident last year.
Yeah.
So you're pretty thin there as far as depth. You signed Jordan Dangerfield, but he's more of a run stuffer and a special teams guy. So I think, that's something you can look at via free agency or the draft too, backup safety.
Okay, so I'm taking a look at Jeff's list. And remember, check this out on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Very good list of the remaining free agents if you're wondering who's out there. I'm going to throw out some names there. And, I'm going to throw out the names that, you think that they'll find a way to afford. Or if they can't afford, we'll just say you can't afford them. I'm not going to read the whole list. I want you to go there. But some that have really stuck out at me. I'm going to mention him, but we're not going to go into conversations with number 2 on the list, Jadeveon Clowney, because it's just not financially feasible. It's not going to happen. But let's look at some of these guys. Wide receiver is a position I want to see them add to. Definitely want to see them add to. It's very deep in the draft, and you expect them to, but they could probably bring somebody else in as well. There are 2 in the top 5 and 3 in the top 12 of Jeff's list. So I'm going to mention all of them here. And you could say flat out can't afford or no or what have you. But, whatever you want to say. But what's your reaction to Robbie Anderson of the Jets, Brashad Perriman of the Buccaneers, late of the Ravens and Browns, and Demarcus Robinson of the Chiefs?
And you said these are in all 3 of these guys are in the top 12
of Jeff's remaining list.
Jeff's list.
And there's one more on the list at number 24. I'll throw him out as well to you, Devin Funchess, who's with the Colts.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that name? You kind of cut out.
Devin Funchess.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say those guys are the top 3 guys for sure. Are probably a little bit out of the Steelers price range right now. I'm actually I'm a little higher on the receiving core than others as far as Juju and Deontay Johnson and James Washington. I think people said they need number 1. Somebody said in the live chat they needed a number 1 receiver. I think they have 3 potential number 1 receivers right now on the roster.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
But I think if they can find a veteran like a Jericho Cotchery type, something they were trying to get last year with Moncrief, and it just really was a disaster. I think if they can find a guy like that, a veteran, like a true professional, maybe late 20s, like not looking to make a big splash in free agency, somebody who can come in and sort of mentor the younger guys, I'd be all for it. I think a guy like that, a number 3 or number 4 receiver, number 4 preferably, I think that'd be a great thing for them to find, a veteran, a true veteran receiver.
See, I don't trust Perriman, and a lot of people out there feel that way. He is going to be cheap, as Kyle Smith says. He says Anderson, no. Anderson's kind of a guy that has domestic stuff, that he has some baggage. So he's definitely one of those guys that has that could be a potential problem. That might be one of the reasons, because he's a tall enough guy, and he lit up the Steelers last year on that 1 touchdown. I think we talked about. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think we talked about him a lot a couple years ago. Robbie Anderson is somebody that was a potential bust-out player. So, but if he has problems like that, then never mind.
I tell you what, this is such a deep wide receiver draft, and that's hard to argue. I think you would be better off going the position route there. And you could throw out a bunch of names, and there's a lot out there that I'm familiar with, and I'm familiar with probably about 15 of the receivers in the top 20 that you could go ahead and look at. There's nobody on this list that I would really want to give a flyer to. Funches definitely hasn't done anything out there. Robbie Anderson, I think there's too much of a risk there. I don't like Brashad Perriman. Demarcus Robinson, maybe if you get him cheap, that might be a guy you bring in. He did some nice things for Kansas City last year. Probably maybe the best on that list, but you'd have to get him super, super, super cheap, and which is a possibility, but nothing. There's really nothing on that list that makes me feel like I'll go get him right now. Snowman brings out Chase Claypool. He's a guy that could play two positions from Notre Dame. He's a tight end and a wide receiver. He's huge. He is a monster. Mentions him as a beast. And there's a lot of people out there. Sean Manahan's not the first to mention it today, but he brings up Martavis Bryant. There's a lot of people that want to give Martavis Bryant another chance, maybe because you can the collective bargaining agreement is not going to punish you as much now for the use of marijuana. So maybe that might be a way. Maybe they give him a 1-year prove-it deal. Would you entertain that?
I think, to quote Robert Ulrich or whatever, I forget his name, the guy who played Rocky and Fighting Back. When you're out of the league for a couple of years, you're pretty much done. And he's been out of the league for what, 2 or 3 years now, basically, maybe longer than that. 2017 was the last time I think he played extensively. I think he's probably done. I think it's best to move on from him.
It probably is best. If they gave him a deal, I'd say, okay, give him a shot, let him prove it. But of course, there would be a tight leash. But I wouldn't be smashing my computer. We had a conversation last week on the Steelers preview, asking about a certain free agent. And I'm like, no, don't bring him in. But if you do bring him in, you'd have to bring him in at a decent contract. And I'm not going to be mad if you bring him in, but I'm not going to go crazy if you go ahead and do it. And they went and did it. And it was Eric Ebron. And now, I still think I still think he has a lot to prove. But the more that I look at him,
well,
I'm thinking, okay, maybe he could do it. I'm feeling better about the deal, but that didn't knock my socks off.
Right. Well, you're talking about Ebron. He had a pretty decent career, until last season when Andrew Luck retired. So that's kind of what Vance McDonald had to face. Jacoby Brissett is a much more proven quarterback, or at least a slightly more proven quarterback than what Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges showed last year. But still, it's a tough transition to go from one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL to a new starter in Brissett. So I think I'm willing to give Ebron the benefit of the doubt. So I'm kind of excited about the deal.
Here's one thing that made me feel better about Eric Ebron, and it's this. I looked at his first 6 years in the league, only 6 years in the league, and Heath Miller's first 6 years in the league. Now, let me throw this out there before you go crazy on me. He's not the blocker that Heath Miller is.
Right.
He's not advertised as that. But we're talking strictly as a pass catcher. Who do you think has more catches, more yards, and more touchdowns in their 6 years? Is it Ebron or Miller?
I think it's a loaded question. I'm gonna go with Ebron.
Well, actually, it's Miller. But
okay.
if you go per game, it's Ebron. Here's how close those stats are. Now, Miller played 102 games in that time period. Ebron missed 19, so he only played 83 games in that time period. We're looking at the fact that Heath Miller had 286 catches. Eric Ebron had 283. Yardage, 3,233 for Heath, 3,195. So 38 more yards did Miller have over Ebron. 29 touchdowns for Heath, 27 for Ebron. But remember, those stats are so close, and that's 19 more games that Heath Miller played.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very important stat, though, because that means that Heath Miller was healthier, and you have a guy that just had two ankles operated on. So so Ebron does not have more TDs. He has two less in that time. But if you look at per game, it's all Ebron.
Right.
So that's something to feel better about.
Yeah.
He's coming into a situation where he did not play terribly with Matt Stafford, and he played pretty good with not pretty good. He played excellent with Andrew Luck. The guy, last year he had struggles with health. He missed 5 or 6 games last year, and he still had better numbers than Vance McDonald. As Snowman mentions, he's dropped more passes. I don't have the drops. So I did not pull those numbers, but I really feel that, this is a guy that could do a whole lot better than I originally thought. So I'm looking forward to it. I thought that move, more I thought about it, I was like, wow, they went ahead and pulled the trigger. And I hear the guys working out ever since 2018 when he had his child, that he's been on a better path. And that's when he started playing better. I was listening to an analyst from Detroit on the radio today, and I heard another one from not India, but Indianapolis, saying that the guy has really stepped it up the last couple of years, and he could really be a good signing. So we'll see. But Mule Skinner mentions he had 13 drops in 2019. He also had 13 touchdowns in 2018.
Yeah, he was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, let's hope that he's putting it together. But for the situation that you had a week ago, not thinking you could bring anybody like this in, you've got a lot of weapons. And one thing that he does is he opens it up in the red zone for Vance McDonald. He opens it up for Juju, Deontay Johnson, Derek Watt, James Washington. He opens it up. That's just and whoever's the running back as well. It opens it up for James Conner. There's a lot of guys that you have to take a look at because Eric Ebron's on the field as well. So I'm pretty excited for that signing. I don't think he's going to be the health risk that Ladarius Green was. Right. Gosh, I can't live through another Ladarius Green, Tony.
Yeah, no, me either. That was he showed so much promise, and he was definitely ready to take that next step as number one tight end, and he was damaged goods. There's no other way to say it. He came here as damaged goods. With the concussion history.
Exactly. And the other thing that this does is it opens up, it takes tight end off the board early, because you're not going to be looking at a tight end early in the 2020 draft. So that's something I'm looking at as well. As I look at Jeff's list, I continue. We talked about maybe another safety in there. If you could get a guy like Demarius Randall at a cheap price, that's a guy to possibly bring in and maybe look at. Or you're looking at a safety like the Saints Von Bell. There's only a couple safeties out there, but those are some guys you want to look at. I don't think you want to bring in a running back, but I think if you do bring in a running back, you're going to bring in a guy like I don't even know if he's not on this list, but you're probably going to want to bring in a guy like Shady McCoy or Carlos Hyde or Frank Gore, one of those older guys. Yeah. HaHa Lewis is not still available, by the way. And Lewis Damper is asking about HaHa's Clinton Dix. Did he go to the Raiders, maybe?
I'm not sure about that one.
Or was it the Bears? No, he was with the Bears last year. I'm really not sure.
The Cowboys.
Cowboys. There you go. Now, is there any other guy on this list or a guy in free agency or a position, Tony, that you'd want them to look at right now?
No, I think they're in pretty good shape right now. I'm looking more towards the draft. I think that's where they set themselves up nicely with these picks that they addressed, or these signings. They addressed the tight end position. They filled the Medikevich / Rosie Nix role with with the Derek Watt signing, and they have a veteran guard and Wisniewski. So, they added defensive line depth. So I think they're good now as far as that is concerned. I think it's time to look ahead to the draft, really.
There you go. And that's exactly what they're going to do. Somebody mentioned Devontae Freeman. Man, the Tate boys did. I would love to see a guy like Devontae Freeman in here. That'd be great. Can you afford him right now? Maybe he's a second wave guy. Maybe he's a prove-it guy. I don't know. There's a player that I would definitely look at as well. But the money is less now. And there's not many more cans to kick down the road. There's a couple. I talked to Dave Schofield today, and Dave put out an article about this. He's thinking there might be about anywhere from 4 to 6 million. He mentioned that on the cap numbers that he's looking at, that Eric Ebron's, as of our conversation around 2:00 today, Eric Ebron's numbers weren't really on there, but he's went ahead and calculated himself. He's thinking maybe about $4 to $6 million. So there's a little bit of money out there. Now we're going to open it up to the live chat. This is the Q&A part of the show. I'm going to bring out Reggie Gilbert here first. And Reggie, we talked about bringing back Martavis Bryant a little bit back in the show, maybe about 10, 15 minutes ago. I'll just be brief with you because it seems like you might have just come on. If they did, Tony said no. I said, if you do, it would have to be a prove it, very cheap deal. Welcome back to the league with a lot of restrictions. But if they go ahead and do it, I'd be surprised if they did it at this point. But they might bring him in as a camp guy and see what he can do. I'm not against second chances. Thad Kennedy, another great listener / viewer to the show, asks Tony and Bad, do you see the Steelers signing any XFL players? I'm going to ask the live chat, Tony, and I'll ask you because there's not many XFL players that I really know. I know the one kid that was lighting it up, and I can't even tell you his name. PJ, was it
PJ Walker?
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to Carolina. And then I mentioned Cardell Jones, that I could see that as a possibility, bringing in a guy like that. That because I like Cardell Jones. I think he's tough. I think he would be perfect for a depth guy that has had some decent experience in the XFL and in this league. Do you know any other XFL player? Because I don't know a lot. I mean, of course, I know Eli Rogers, and I know a few of the Steeler players that were there, but I don't know if any would be coming back in. Do you?
No, I mean, I actually kind of like Eli Rogers as a number 4 guy, but they seem to have soured on him, and so I don't see him coming back. Other than him or Landry Jones, I'm like you. I can't really think of anybody else other than the major star PJ Walker to come out of the XFL. So I don't. I'm sure there are going to be some guys that they do bring in or somebody brings in, but I just can't think of anybody by name.
All righty. So here's a really good question. Ollie Howard, species 5618. Are we sure there's going to be a season? May have to skip one. Virus is running through NBA, NHL, and soccer. We can only hope. And that's really, I mean, with everything that we're doing right now, we're going to hope that there's a season. No, nobody's sure there's going to be a season.
No.
But you've got a plan for one. And that's the best thing I could say.
Well,
if it gets to that point, then wow.
Yeah, for all of our sakes. Yeah, for all of our sakes, we better hope there's an NFL season, and we better hope that it starts on time, because it's 6 months from now. And if we're still dealing with this 6 months from now, we're gonna have a lot bigger problems than the NFL.
And you know what? This is going out on a limb here, but it's all a part of, this is preachy bad on a soapbox. Hey, it's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to all of us to continue to practice the social distancing to the best of our ability. and listen to Ben Roethlisberger, and don't go. I mean, do our part. Look, I'll sacrifice a lot of things to make sure that I'm staying safe. I had a situation yesterday where I had to go out. I had no choice, and I went to the last place I wanted to go. But I had to take care of something, and I did. So with that, but I kept my distance being there. I mean, look, I mean, I'm being vague, but I had a situation where I had to go to the ER yesterday. It was a situation where I got hit with something that it was not corona related, as I'm about to cough, but it has nothing to do. Excuse me. Great timing on the cough. But I'll tell you, I suffer from kidney stones. I had one that I knew that I had to go get taken care of. And I'm like, oh, last place I want to go. So, I mean, they told me at the ER here in Maryland that I'm safer going there than I am to the supermarket at this point, because of everything they go in place. But, listen to Ben Roethlisberger, just, spend time with family, try to stay in and be safe. And that's the best way that we can get back on our feet. We do have a live chat, and I don't want to lose it. I'm trying to bring it up, and it's from Snowman, a fantastic contributor to our show. If Chase Claypool and J.K. Dobbins are available when Steelers pick, who do you pick? So I always want to say J.K. Rowling because I'm a Harry Potter fan there. So I'm going to say right away, I'm going Dobbins because I think as a running back, I think he's absolutely fantastic. If he's sitting there, you still can get a really good player in the third round at wide receiver. And I'd go for a running back like Dobbins, or even I don't think Taylor from Wisconsin's going to be there, Jonathan Taylor. But if he was, I'd probably take the stud running back over Chase Claypool. But I do like Chase Claypool a lot. Tony.
Oh, I would go with Dobbins. I mean, people have said many times that the receiving class is really deep this year. I think Dobbins is the best running back in the class, and I think he's a number one first round caliber player for sure. And if he does fall to the Steelers, they'd be crazy not to take him. So I would have to go. I'd have to agree with you on Dobbins.
And the thank you for the $5 in the tip jar as well, Snowman. I appreciate it. Ryan Kellerman's asking. He's another good contributor to the show. In fact, anybody that's watching right now is a pretty good contributor to the show, and we appreciate all of you. But a name that we know, Ryan Kellerman. What's the percentage that we sign Winston as the backup? We talked a lot about Winston at the beginning of the show. If we went ahead and put percentages on it, that's a different animal. So Tony, throw out your percentage.
I'd say at this point, I'm going to say about 25%.
25%, really?
Well, I mean, I didn't think they were going to get Minka last year. I didn't think they were going to sign Joe Hayden a couple years ago. I didn't think they were going to trade for Devin Bush. So never say never. So I'm going to give it a honest 25%, a solid 25% chance.
I'm going to go his jersey number. I'll go 3%.
Oh, okay.
So I just don't think it's happening. If it does, I'm going to welcome it. I'm going to welcome anybody that walks through that door, unless it's like, Hitler, or and I don't think, or it's, like a horrible person that I can't cheer for. So there you go. So with all the wide receivers in this draft, we should get someone really good, says AJC. I agree with that, Tony. I think it's deep.
Yeah, it's somebody it's a position you can draft in the third or fourth round. I mean, they got Deontay Johnson last year in the third round, so I think you could definitely get somebody for sure. I mean, and obviously somebody said before Mike Tomlin's not a quarterback whisperer. Well, the Steelers are definitely wide receiver whisperers. They've proven that time and time again over the past decade or so. So I think there's definitely going to find another gem this year.
There you go. Rod Young, I'm just going to say thank you. Rod, that makes us feel good. That's one of the reasons we do it, just to be
you and me both, Rod.
Be a part of you. But Rod says, bad, Tony. The show gives me a break from all this madness. Thank you, boys. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nap, our buddy Nap 1963. from the one. Oh my gosh, I forgot my old. I forgot the Johnstown zip code 15904. I was so I bet you it naps from the 02 15902 maybe. There will be a season. We fix this. So he's double fixing this. I think there's going to be a season. Let's see. Thaddeus Kennedy, he predicts it won't be over by training camp. Tate Boys likes J.K. Dobbins. So Kathy, I want to bring this up. Kathy is a great contributor to our show. She is always there for us, and we appreciate Kathy as well. Kansas in the house. So true, bad. Please, millennials, it's all up to you guys. Now, I want to bring up a conversation I had with a good friend of mine and my wife's, and they've noticed that there's a lot of people in the 70 and up club that are like, screw it, I'm going out. And I've noticed that. I've noticed that it's like our generation, Tony, because I guess we're Generation X still,
right?
And it is up to the millennials, and I think the millennials are starting to be smart about it. We really need to look at a lot of the generations to say, hey, look, we have never experienced this, but look at the big picture. And but it's the older ones that are defiant. Some of the older ones are like, no, I'm going out. Like,
right.
You can't. You cannot. Because my friends was yelling at their moms, you cannot go get your nails done. You need to be quarantined. Nobody needs to see your nails.
I'm just impressed that there's a place like that open in Maryland, because everything like that's been closed here, except for the supermarkets and takeout from restaurants and bars.
Yeah, in Maryland, the governor shut more things down today. I know West Virginia, who I'm very close to West Virginia as well, being about 15 miles from West Virginia. I'm about 5 miles from Pennsylvania, so I'm like 81. I'm close to everything. I'm not that far from Virginia as well. I'm about 25 miles from Virginia. So with all that, we're seeing the West Virginia. They were all proud that they didn't have any cases until just the other day, but they didn't test either. So,
right. Yeah.
I'm not sure what this part of the conversation was, but I got to bring up my boy, Sir Lancelot. He had to take care of BJ Finney's pants. I'm not sure what that was about. I'd have to go back. Yeah, I lost my pants. So now I've got to find a new player's pants to wear. And they've got to be a big guy, because remember, I barely fit into BJ Finney's pants, and he weighs a lot more than I do. But he's also a lot taller than I am too. Brianna Morrow, do you think that the Steelers can clear enough cap space to sign Von Bell? We talked about Von a little bit ago. I mean, he's a second wave guy. What do you think?
I think that they can clear enough space because they've done it so many times. I mean, they're experts at it, but I don't think they're going to at this point. I think they're gonna look for somebody a little cheaper.
Somebody asked if I said that I have wives. No, I only have one, except for my wife has a group of friends they call the sister wives, but I have never seen any benefits from any of the other sister wives. And the only one I get to ever hang out with is the one that married me in person. So no, I do not have plural wives. But it's hard enough for me to just to take care of one or have one take care of me. How about that? Because I'm a handful. Let's see. As far as that goes, don't see really many more questions. Did I wash the pants before putting them on? They were the Steelers. I actually bought them from the Steelers, the Steelers store. And they had a certificate of authenticity. I bought them for $20. They were half price. And so they smelled Downy fresh. Let's just put it that way. They smelled very clean. I did not get dirty pants. Yes, Dennis, I love Dennis Sheridan. He's my buddy. She married you in person. Yeah, I did not. Boy, I'm putting my foot in my mouth today. I did not. She wasn't a mail order bride or anything like that. But quarantine marriage on Skype, that's Mindy Weinstein says that's a great idea. You know, Tony, if anybody does want to get married on Skype, I know the person that can do it. Do you know that? Yes, me.
That's
I
right.
have married over
Right.
12, 13 people.
Yeah, you told me
In the
you
last
were
3 years.
qualified. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am an internet officiant, and I do that in person if you wanted to know. But yeah, I do a lot in the Baltimore area actually as well. But I would do an online wedding if that's. Can I do a quarantine special? I'd have to check with my licensed specialist on that to see if I could do that. And Mendy, we're gonna put Mendy on again because celebrating that I got on the show.
Woo!
There you go. Hey,
Congratulations.
first, I guess this is the first time I've seen the name before, but I guess that's the first time on the live chat that we threw out. Kane Adamson got married in Jamaica a year ago today. Is that a year ago today? Yeah, 1 year. So happy anniversary, Kane. I think that's fantastic. I hope you have many more. I know I've been married happily for 10 years. So 10 out of 13 ain't bad. There's my symbol. I mean, that's a terrible joke. That's my dad's joke. Somewhere my dad's smiling in Pennsylvania, somewhere going, there you go. He loves when I tell his jokes. But anyways, at what draft pick, AJC asked, should we look for a third safety? That's a good question. I like that. What do you think, Tony?
Well, I think you're open to just about any round with that because you know there's still questions about Terrell Edmonds, even though he was your first round pick in 2018. So I think there are so many positions that you can look at in those early rounds, and I think you can definitely throw safety in there. People were mentioning safety last year. That was before Minka, but they were mentioning safety in the first round. Whereas I think this year I could definitely see them looking for looking at that position in the second or third round.
I mean, I could look at a fourth round. What, they have 2 fourth rounders this year too. Mm-hmm. So there, and Jerry Cherry Band is in on the joke. The joke is I've been married for 10 years, best 2 years of my life.
I've never been married. I'm stigmatized now. When you're over 40, women look at you weird when you say you've never been married. So I have a lot of obstacles to overcome.
That's it. So let's try this on the live chat. So let's give Tony a rebuttal for that. So how about this in a smooth voice? Baby, I've just been waiting for you all my life. What do you think? Would that work for Tony?
I'd have to work on the voice, but yes, I think that would work.
So just really smooth. What's your number one pickup line, Tony?
Hi. That's pretty much all I have, and then I take it from there.
Hi, I've been tested.
I have a Chevy Cruze and I blog.
If that
doesn't do it, nothing will.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, let's say congratulations to one of our favorites here. Dennis Sheridan has us all covered. 50th anniversary is coming up in October. We are gonna party on this show in October. You got to let us know in October on the Hangover. We'll celebrate your anniversary. We'll have our own BTSC anniversary party for you in the Hangover. So Dennis, we will definitely do that.
Dennis, that's a good milestone. 50 years.
So Thaddeus Kennedy says Tony's probably killing it on Tinder. Are you a left swiper? Is that even right?
It's funny you should say that because ever since all this quarantine stuff started, all these women say, "Hey, I want to meet you." I think they're just being mean because I can't meet them now.
That's really funny. We'll have to work on that. Lewis Damper, I'm having my first baby in 3 months. Is Steelers baby clothes overdoing it? Absolutely not.
That's perfect. That's 100% Steeler Nation right there. You have to do that.
My children were born in the state of Maryland, and they were probably on this earth for about 5, maybe 10 minutes before they were draped in a terrible towel. My wife had their first outfit planned for their first official baby picture. I'm like, that's fine, but you do 2 official baby pictures. And I had them draped in terrible towels in that official baby picture too, because that was my role. And so when my son was born, he had this little, I had him decked out in a little Steeler outfit, and they came in to give him his first shots. And the guy giving him his first shots was wearing Ravens tennis shoes. And then baby starts to cry. I'm like, see, Ravens fans will try to make you cry. Remember that all your life, buddy.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So that's
started them out early.
So yeah, no, definitely get them. You need to get them a little. You know what? Wonder if BTSC, you can get a BTSC onesie. That's what we've got to work on. Well, we'll see if we can find a BTSC onesie or a picture of just me and Tony on it, Lewis, for you. So with maybe we'll have our own onesies made for you. That'd be fun. So wait a second. I lay it on. Think, guys, I'm showing. Let's see. I'm showing my girl this this podcast. So lay it on thick. Lewis's lady. There's nothing more special than having a Steeler family. And I will tell you this. My wife wanted us to do family pictures this year. And she had it set up. She's like, I promise you, we do the family pictures. We could all have jerseys on too. So I picked out the jerseys. In fact, it's actually in this room right over there. I could actually show it to you, but I'm not going to do that to you guys. But every time we do a family picture, we do the Steeler jerseys as well, and she lets me pick that out because I'm not allowed to pick out the regular clothes. But so there you go. Senior Slim says, my boy was 3 months out of the hospital, Steeler out for the 2015 Steeler Bengal playoff game. We all know what happened in that game. Wow, that was a lot of fun. Wow,
great game. That was a fun game.
Good luck in that game. There you go. So Lewis's lady, when you have the baby, we will have our own BTSC christening into Steeler Nation on this show. So we'll set it up with you, Lewis. When the baby comes in 3 months, we'll have a special. Let's see, Reverend Bad and Deacon Tony. We'll go ahead and have our own Steeler baptism. And there you go. And we'll baptize the Damper baby into Steeler Nation. So plus it's gonna be the off season. We got to do something fun. So there you go. Snowman brings up something really nice. Steelers are donating $100,000 to United Way to help the families affected by the virus. I saw where the Pirates today bought a whole bunch of pizzas and took to the hospital. Pizzas and salads and sandwiches to take to the hospitals. Mm-hmm. So that's great. That's at least they're out doing some stuff there too. Logan DiLorenzo says, my first son was born during the Jacksonville playoff game from 2018. And he has been in pain ever since. Oh, let's say he was just born in bad circumstances. That's it. He's
still a better inside linebacker than Sean Spence, I think. So you're good in that game.
There you go. See, we're going to blame Sean Spence. Well, I tell you what, that's a great way to stop. We're coming up on an hour. We try to keep the show under the hour. Mendy Weinstein, who just made the show for the first time, says family dinner, gotta go. I hope it's a good dinner. I hope everybody, I know we're having homemade pizza at the Bad residence tonight. Tony, I hope you have a good dinner. Once again, thank you all of us. Thank you all of you for hanging out with us. We had over 110 at one point in the live chat. Very special that you're quarantined and you're spending time talking Steelers right now in the middle of March. And that's what Steeler Nation does. And when we have good days, when we have bad days, we're a BTSC family and we love it. So learned a lot about you. I loved hearing about Dennis getting ready for 50, a 1-year anniversary we heard about. We've got a baby coming, and then now we're going to have a BTSC baptism, and we are definitely going to do that. So with that being said, Tony, you have anything to leave us with?
I just had a fun show. It was a fun show, and I thank you guys for being a great distraction for an hour because it's been a tough week.
For Tony Defeo, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Just when you think you figured out all the answers,
we keep changing the questions. See you next week.
The beloved Roddy Piper taking us out. Good night, everybody.